Anna, I did a mistake. I washed my hair and then I fell asleep with wet hair.
Yesterday.
Oh, the book's in the other room? This far?
Probably there.
I know.
Okay. It's here.
So this is special. Thanks, Kyle.
I mean, no, it's a lot of jam. It's jam.
But in the oh yeah, and in the liver need you guys have?
Thank you.
Here you go. Coffee for you. Coffee for you. What?
Because I hate it. Oh.
Okay, we're starting with page 74. Page Yud 10. So here he's going to discuss another manifestation of Yeshus, of Sinas Chinam, what it leads to, and how it is negative. Like we said yesterday, it's like the Gashmias, when a person has a certain condition, not all conditions can you see with your eyes, they're internal. What you could see is the symptoms. So what he's going through here is the symptoms of Midyan. And from the symptoms, we can recognize that we have Midyanitis inside. We got to take care of it. V'hinei, v'yosei yimotzei avon sinas chinam v'avon seino rabim b'ivdei Hashem. Unfortunately, where do we find this sinas chinam more than any place else? Dafke by Ovdei Hashem. Like I emphasized yesterday, Ovdei Hashem means not just a person who learns Torah and does mitzvahs, but it's even more than that. Ovdei Hashem, people who actually work on themselves and they work on personal refinement, they can find themselves trapped in this clip of Midyan. And as we said yesterday, it's very possible that the reason for that is that the Yetzer Hara puts much more effort into places that he would gain more strategically. So just like we say in reference to davening, that when a person gets distracting thoughts during davening, it's not a sign that your davening is not good. On the contrary, it's a sign that your davening is good. And the Yetzer Hara feels threatened by your davening. And that's why people will find a lot of the thoughts that are disturbing and that they're distracting dafka happen during davening, not other times in the day. A little bit doesn't make sense. Other times of the day, when I'm involved in mundane things, it would make more sense. That's when all sorts of nonsense and thoughts come to my mind. Davening, I'm involved in something holy, it shouldn't be happening. So it's happening more by davening than other times. And the reason is because dafka by davening, that's when the Yetzer Hara tries to do this because it feels threatened by my davening. So I guess those people who are Ovdei Havaya, again, the side of Klippa feels threatened by it. So that's why, could be one of the reasons why Dafka them, he sort of gets to them in this way, because let's not forget the iyar hara comes to every person from a different angle, an angle that would appeal in their eyes. So a person who serves Hashem, he has to present it to him in a way that it looks like it's part of my service to Hashem, because I'm so passionate about Yiddishkeit, Torah, mitzvahs, self-refinement. That's why I hate this person so much. Doesn't realize that that's not even the true reason. So what happens? Every person builds himself his own little pedestal, they write, or it means his own little platform. Basic Torah. First of all, when it comes to learning, and also when it comes to avodah. So first he talks about learning. Learning, then when a person studies Torah, he studies it, and he specifically focuses on understanding things the way he understands it. And the same thing is in his divine service, which means, what do I do to refine my midas? What's the right thing to do? What's the wrong thing to do? What's the right order, how to do things? Again, he uses his own judgment, his own intellect, his own seichel to judge what's right and what's wrong. And the people who are both into the same thing, they're into learning, they're into self-refinement, which is avodah, but they're not interacting with each other. But the truth is, one of the fundamental things that are fundamentally important when it comes to either learning Torah or avodah, which means, or working on my avodah, my refining my midas and service to Hashem. What's fundamentally important is that people should connect to each other and should communicate with each other, and that'll help me go in the right direction. And he brings now the sources. First of all, when it comes to learning, page 75, Hein basic Torah. When it comes to learning, our Chazal say how the barzel yochad v'yishachad pnei re'eyu. This is quoting a pasuk, where the pasuk says, just like iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. Which basically means that the Gashmias, when you have a piece of a sword, for example, or a knife, one of the ways of sharpening a knife is by using another knife or a sword. So iron sharpens iron. That's how Torah scholars sharpen each other when they learn together and they have a discussion together. One asks a question, one gives an answer, one makes a statement, the other one says they have a question on that statement. Through this interaction, through this communication, through this discussion, things become much more clear. No person can say with absolute certainty that the way I understand it is emes. In other words, I can't make any mistakes. I'm definitely on target with understanding things correctly, and there's no need for me to have and listen to anyone else's opinion about the subject. When a person hears his colleague's opinion and they engage in a sincere discussion, they really have a dialogue about it. So that's how they can arrive to the true understanding of the matter, because you say one thing and I say another thing, and I realize, no, this was not accurate. You realize what you said might be not accurate. And together we work it out. If I'm not going to bounce it off another person, I won't get a clear picture of, do I understand it correctly or not? So that's what it means that the Gemara says, two Talmidei Chachamim should be studying together, should be talking to each other, talking about what they've learned to get a clear understanding. And the same applies to avodah. When we're talking about avodah, a person who wants to find themselves, become a better person, this is also going to be more successful if I interact with other people. When people reveal their inner issues one with the other, they speak about it freely. There's so much good in it. What's the benefit of two people talking with each other and sharing issues that they're struggling with and sharing with another person? How is that going to help me? So he says there's a few points. Aleph, first of all, there are many things. He doesn't realize, doesn't even notice that he has that fault. What is self-refinement? It means to basically clean up my act, find things that are not the way they should be, and I have to work on removing it. So there's two steps. The first step is just to even recognize that it's there, just like Begashmis. Baruch Hashem, there are doctors. Baruch Hashem, there are medicines, there are procedures and all sorts of treatment and to heal people. But the first step for that to happen is the person should even be aware and recognize that they have something that needs to be treated, something that needs to be corrected. Same thing, Baruchnius. You can't, there are a lot of remedies. In fact, there's remedies for everything, but I have to first recognize that I have this fault. And it said, Abba Satzma, because everyone has self-love, and because of the self-love, we don't recognize, we don't see our own faults. Like it says, love covers all faults. Especially when it comes to shortcomings in character traits, that a person, it's not about, I don't want to go through the bother of correcting. I don't even realize that I'm doing something wrong. And why don't I realize? Because, like it says in the pasuk, there's an example that's given in one of the sikhs that when you stand far from something, it's hard to see. When you're closer, you can see better. What if you're very close, like you put your finger right over here, you won't see a thing. Doesn't make sense. If I'm closer with 10 feet, I see better. If I'm closer with 5 feet, it's even better. 3 feet, even better. So if I put it on my eye, why wouldn't that even be better? Because when it's on your eye, you can't see. Besides the fact that there are certain things we can't see. I can't see what's on my forehead. I need a mirror for that. I need another person to tell me what it looks like. So we can't see our own faults. And that's where another person comes into the picture that they can help me recognize. Yes.
What about those people that are hard on themselves? Like they're regular, it's like not that like
That's an example of a fault that they don't see. In other words, they think that it's not a fault, that it's a good thing. The other person says, you're being too hard on yourself. Could you relax a little bit? It's an interesting thing, a very beautiful Hasidic interpretation of something we learned about last week. Last week in the Pasha, we learned all about Mitzorah, about leprosy, about all sorts of negoyim that you see. A person has these skin things on it. Something happens to the skin, and you need a kohen to come look at it and diagnose it whether it's okay or not okay. And if you learn the Pasha, you probably know that even if it's not okay, it doesn't become tummy until the kohen looks at it and pronounces it as being tummy. So these are the words in the Mishnah where I wonder if I put it down into this booklet. Let me just check for a second. We are in chapter 10. Let's see if I put it here in the terms. It's just a very beautiful interpretation. No. So it says in Gemara, Rashi brings it down, where it says, Kol HaNagoyim, all the Nagoyim, all these defects in the skin, Odem Roya, a kohen could see, except his own, which means if the Kohen himself has one, then he's not the one to judge, needs someone else to judge. But the language is a little bit different. It doesn't say judge. It says the term in the Torah is he has to see it. In other words, if you go to the Kohen and says, it looks like this and like this and like this, and the Kohen says, okay, it's Tameh, that's not good enough. He has to actually come there with his eyes, see it, and then declare that it's Tameh or Tahor. So the words are a Kohen, a person could see all the Negoyim except for his own Negoyim. So the simple meaning is he doesn't have the authority to say Tameh or Torah about his own. But the deeper meaning is he doesn't see his own Negoyim. He doesn't see his own shortcomings and his own faults. The Chaverim, if it's a true friend, so the friend can become aware of it and tell him this and this is wrong. And then again, if a person's sincere, then the one who tells it to you does it sincerely, and you are not only not resentful or upset, you're actually happy. Thank you for letting me know. Imagine if you walk outside and you don't realize there's some piece of paper got stuck to your back or on a part of your coat that you didn't notice, and you're walking down the street and someone says, you have something over there stuck to you. You look funny. Oh, thank you so much. Why don't you get upset? How dare you tell me there's something wrong with me? You're very thankful. You don't want to look like a clown when you walk down the street. So they're helping you. So if a person's sincere, I'm actually thankful that you're pointing something out to me. So that's number one, that I won't even notice they have something. If a person sincerely wants to work on self-refinement, then I must speak to another person because I myself won't be able to recognize. And we're not talking about things that are so black and white that you have to be blind not to see. It's about things that are a little bit more subtle. What I say, the way I say it, the words that I use, the tone of voice, these are things that are not so clear that I'm doing something wrong. It's another thing, when a person shares the things that are going on internally, and he speaks about it verbally to another person, when he speaks about it, it causes the person to feel more remorse, more than what he felt before. First of all, it's a fact, but it's based on what it says in Chassidus in many places, that when it talks about the power of speech, that on one hand, when you think something in your mind, it's in some ways there's more life and more energy to it, and when you speak, it's not what you're thinking; it's much less. In other words, anything that you feel internally or you're thinking internally is much deeper than what comes out in words, whether it's intellect or emotion. To give an example of emotion, because intellect's a little bit harder, but to give an example of emotion, when you're feeling excited about something, or you're feeling upset about something, and someone asks you, why do you feel this way? And you say, why you're so excited, why you're so happy, the words that come out of your mouth explain it, but there's no way that these words carry in them that same energy that you have when you feel inside. They get people to speak about the Holocaust, what they went through, and you hear they went through this. What we hear is not even a fraction of what they went through, and there's no way that they, through speech, could ever express what they're feeling inside. And the same is with seichel. Unfortunately, our seichel is very technical, so it doesn't make much of a difference. But when it's really deep seichel, and you have to explain a deep concept to a person who's not as intellectual, it also be watered down. So I would always expect that when you speak, things become less. But we've seen an interesting thing. That is a dapke. When you speak, something becomes stronger. And one example is midas. When it comes to emotion, for example, somebody's upset about something. Another person walks over to you, I see you're so upset. What are you upset about? And as you start talking about what happened and why you're upset, just to get more angry, you're like flying over the handle, nowhere compared to the way you felt before. What happened? You just thought about it before. You're upset inside. Now that you're talking to the other person, your voice is rising and you're getting all worked up. And the answer is because when you speak, it actually generates more energy, more intellectual energy and more emotional energy. And there's an explanation in Chassidus why that happens. And that's what he's saying, that when a person has to speak to another person about what bothers them, what I think I'm doing wrong, as I speak, I feel more pain about it, and therefore I feel more remorse. I feel more remorseful and regret the things that I did. And as a result of that, I uproot my desire from doing those things. And in fact, that's how it actually becomes corrected. We know what it says in this is first of all in halacha, and it's explained in Chassidus. In halacha, tshuva has two parts to it. Remember, we learned about this in the beginning of the year in Geras tshuva. One part is charot al over, that I feel bad about what happened in the past, and the second part is kabbalah la. I think about myself, I make a resolve, and in the future I'll do things right. These two things, even though they're two separate things, they're really connected, and they are in proportion to each other. Which means if my regret of the past is strong, then my resolve about the future will also be strong. If my regretting the past is mediocre, I feel bad that it happened, but I don't feel so bad, then my resolve for the future will also not be so strong. The mashal Chassidus that's given is like a bow and arrow. In order to shoot an arrow, you have to pull back the arrow with the string, then you let go. As much as you pull back, that's how far out it's going to go. If you pull back a little bit, it'll fly a little bit. If you pull back more, it'll fly further. So the more I pull back, meaning the more I feel that remorse, the more the resolve to do the positive in the future will come with more force. So therefore, there is an advantage in the fact that I feel more remorse. When I feel more remorse, that's how I uproot that negative thing that I've done. And that's how I make a stronger resolution and resolve to correct it in the future. In fact, that's why in davening and in the mitzvah of tshuva, part of the mitzvah is to say the verbal confession. In other words, this is also something we spoke about a lot in Tishrei time. Like one of the details in the mitzvah of tshuva is that we have to verbally say to Hashem, Hashamnu, Bagadnu, Gozalnu. That's what we say al chait. And the question is, why is it necessary? Tshuva is all about feeling in the heart. So why is it necessary to verbalize it? Actually, speech is external. You can actually say the words, not feel anything. So shouldn't we be focusing only on the feeling and in fact not doing the speaking, because then the speaking could actually detract from focusing on the feeling. Why is it important to say it? And the answer is, based on what he says there, because when you say it, you feel more the regret and the remorse. You feel worse about what you've done. I'll remind you, I gave you an example then, that with children, you find often two kids get into a fight, and one child is a little bit too aggressive, and you call them over and you say, you give them a whole speech, then you say, are you going to do this again? Say, I'm sorry to your sister. Say, are you going to do it again? Are you sorry that you did it? Say, I'm sorry. They're not going to do it. You have to do a lot of hard work to get them to say the words, I'm sorry. What's the difference? They're shaking their head. They're not going to do it again. So why don't they say, I'm sorry? And we see with adults also, it's harder. When you say the words, I'm sorry, somehow it's more concrete, more real, more tangible. But by doing that, the feeling is stronger. And that's why we want to verbalize and we say to Hashem, Hashamnu Bagadnu, that's why there has to be the verbal confession. When something comes out through speaking and verbally, it touches him in a deeper way. It causes them more pain and more regret. And therefore, it's important to discuss it with another person. The Dugmal is a similar concept we find in the pasuk, Daigo belev ish yisachena. If there's worry in a person's heart, yisachena. Yisachena has two meanings. I wanted to point out to you in the booklet, I hope you have it next to you. In the booklet, I made a copy of Hayom Yom. There's a Hayom Yom on this. Let me see if I can find where it is. So It's page 47. Actually brings this pasuk. Here it says a care. Here it says a worry. Daiga means, I think, worry. So worry in a man's heart, yisachena. So, and the Chazal say that the word yisachena could have two interpretations. One is from the word hesech hadas, which means distract yourself. Just remove it from the mind. And the other one is from the word sicha, speak about it, discuss it with another person. So, which is the better way to do it? The answer is it depends. Sometimes the better thing to do is yisachena, just distract yourself, get it out of your mind. And in some cases, the thing to do is to speak to another person. We're not going to go into it, all the details now, but what we see here is that when you speak to another person, yisachena lacherim, speak about this to another person. When we see when he speaks about what hurts, then that pain becomes greater and you feel it more than what you felt before. But after that, he feels better, and that's why there's a positive point in speaking it out and getting it out and speaking to another person. Which means besides the fact that the other person will help me sort of give me ideas because they're more objective, besides that, just speaking to another person makes it lighter. In English, they call it ventilation. Just get it out of my system, makes it lighter already.
So, sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying, like, even if someone says something like, and they're not thinking, and they say something out of like emotional, and then they regret it, that situation can like actually help them to do teshuvah and like bring them to like a place of more self-control. If they're conscious about it.
Right. If they're focusing on the teshuvah part of it, yeah,
Right.
it'll make it stronger. And if they feel more of
Like
what they did wrong,
like
and the
feel it.
resolve to correct it, that it shouldn't happen again would be a stronger result. Yeah.
So then it becomes like on a higher level than what it actually
Would have been without it. Yeah. So the same is in Avodah, just like it is Begashmis. When he talks to another person about something, inner faults, based at the time that he's speaking is mitzvah, so he feels more pain. But after that, he feels better and he feels lighter because he got it out and spoke to this other person. But when it comes to ruchnius, there's a deeper part to it. By speaking to the other person and feeling that remorse, that's actually something which removes the stain, so to speak, because it's a form of tshuva. Now, there's a third reason of what there is to gain when people speak together. Moreover, when two people speak together, then people will think of eitzes, of good advice, what could be done to correct the situation. Together they make a resolve for the future. So we also find very often that when a person thinks about something that they regret, usually they get more focused on what they did wrong and how bad it was and how it compares to someone else and what's so terrible about it. They focus on that more than what can I do about it. Most people will tell you, I have a recording going on in my head. I did this. This is a recording, goes all over again. And the focus is on the recording. There's not a focus on doing something about it. When two people talk to each other, it's much easier to keep focused in terms of, okay, so let's think of what can be done. So me, I end up going back to how terrible it is. I feel bad about it. The other person who's not feeling what I'm feeling about what I did could be more focused on and help me think of a solution rather than think about the problem and how big the problem is. And the same I can do for that person. He can't do it for himself and I can't do it for myself. And not only that, but when they do make a resolution, when two people resolve to do something together, and especially if there's a group of people, more people make a hachlata to do something together, it's going to be much stronger than when you do it on your own. And this is something which the Rebbe repeated hundreds of times by Fabrengens, that people should make a hachlata. Sometimes I would say there should be a gathering, there should be a convention, there should be a kinus, and Fabrengen, and by that Fabrengen, they should come up with something practical they're going to do and make this hachlata together. And when you make this hachlata together as a group, it'll last longer, it'll have more effect than if you do it on your own. And this is the source for this. In fact, I heard this many people that when they went in Chassidus to the Rebbe, personally, and they asked the Rebbe advice about things of this nature, like, for example, davening, I think about something, I make up my mind to resolve this issue, and from now on it's going to be different. And when you're davening, you feel so strong that, wow, you can see the whole future changing. As soon as the davening is over, everything comes right back to before. And I stumble in the same way that I stumbled before. Tomorrow, okay, that's it. Today's the day that there's going to be a change. From now on, just never going to happen again. And after davening, all the air goes out of the balloon and you're back to the way before. But anyway, I don't think the person was so dramatic with the Rebbe, but he asked the Rebbe a question. What do I do that when I make a hachlata and davening, I should stick to it? So for the people that I spoke to, I heard two answers. One of them was something very simple. The Rebbe asks every person differently because every person is different. We all have different neshamas, we all have different strengths, and the Rebbe gives everybody sometimes a different answer based on who they are and what their shlichus in this world is. They tell a story with the Rebbe Marash that I think I told you once that the Rebbe Marash would often say things in a humorous way. So one time a chassid was waiting to go in to see him, and as he's waiting, he had a discussion with another chassid, and he told him that he spoke to the Rebbe Marash about a certain issue, and he gave him this and this advice, which is he liked what the Rebbe Marash said. And he actually had the same issue. And he was actually going to see the Rebbe about the same issue. So he goes into the Rebbe and presents the issue. And the Rebbe gives him advice, which he didn't like so much, the advice the Rebbe gave him. I'm not sure what it was. But obviously, it wasn't the greatest chassid in town. So he says to the Rebbe, I know you gave the other guy advice like that. How come you're giving me different advice? So the Rebbe Marash said, what kind of Rebbe would I be if I give everybody the same advice? And even though it was said in a humorous way, but it's really true. A Rebbe doesn't just give you advice because, like a psychologist or a marriage counselor is going to say, do this and that. He sees your neshama, he sees what's going on spiritually, and based on that, he tells you what you need to do. So for everybody, it's going to be different. So one person or a few people told me, the Rebbe told them that after davening, they should say an additional tehillim. And the purpose of that tillim is that those hachlatas that they made in davening, they should be able to stick to it. But the other piece of advice, which I heard from more people, was that the Rebbe said that you should share your hachlata with someone else that you look up to, that you respect, whether a friend or a mashpia or someone, and then you'll feel uncomfortable or embarrassed to go against your hachlata because the other person knows what you said you're going to do.
What's the English word for hachlata? Like
resolution, resolve. Yeah. Okay. So that's what it says. When people make hachlata together, it's now what I just told you is one reason. There's also a deeper reason. Because when people are together, just in general, anything you do together with another person has more strength to it. It actually is a Rashi and Chumash, even physically. Rashi says this in Pasha Shlach, that when a person and another person together lift something, they could lift more than they can each lift on their own. In other words, if I could lift 25 pounds maximum, and the other person could lift 25 pounds maximum, the most, together we should be able to lift 50 pounds. But the Gemara says, no, together you could lift 75 pounds. Why? I have my koyach, you have your koyach, and the fact that we're combining and we're merging gives us new additional strength. So when two people do something together, it's always going to be stronger than if I do it on my own. So what we see from all this, that when people who serve Hashem get together, become a protein. It's so good and so beneficial in so many ways. But the calls there, when is this possible that people will get together and share things with one another? If he has bittul, and yachol is ached or is karv, and then if you have bittul, you could get together with another person, you become close with another person, and you could share with another person. But a person who is a yesh, which means he's more into his ego and he's focused on his own sort of, yeshus, and making sure that it's protected and that he has the high status. He can't reveal to another person that he's not perfect. That's one reason. First of all, this person also has to carry himself at a certain, on a pedestal, carry himself on a certain level, and he can't share with another person that I'm not perfect. Even though everybody knows you're not perfect, but I can't reveal that deep secret. Or it's because a person who's a yesh looks down at other people, and therefore he doesn't respect the other person. And if it's someone that I look down to and I don't respect, how could I reveal my fear? And how could that person help me? This person is a nobody. What kind of benefit can I have from this other person? So first of all, someone's a yesh will always have this thought that how could it be, like very often, I heard this once from a marriage counselor who's been doing the work for years and years, and he said that it's very unfortunate that so many marriages could have been saved, but there's someone in the marriage that doesn't want to go to any kind of counseling, any kind of guidance, because if they would, it would be so easy to correct the situation. Of course, it doesn't mean every situation is like that, but quite a bit. So what is it that stands in the way? Why does a person have an issue of going to someone else and asking them for guidance? You go on the train and you get lost. You walk over to someone and says, do you know which train takes me to Kingston Avenue? Because that's such a terrible thing. So you ask another person, could you tell me what do I need to do to get out of this plunder that I got myself into? But a person's a yesh, number one, looks down at the other person, so that person can't really help me. And second of all, if I look down at that person, I can't accept that that person who's down there is going to help me who's up here. But the main thing is, etzem and yochel l'sach. Really, it's more basic is the fact that a person's a yesh just can't connect to other people. He's just in his own world, and he doesn't recognize the importance of another person. And this applies to both the academic part and also the avodah part. So therefore, everything that he learns and everything that he studies, he goes by his own opinion. And he thinks that's the truth. He doesn't want to look up to anyone else. We had a parent here once, came for the parent Shabbaton. He was religious, but he was what you call modern Orthodox. Even in modern Orthodox, there are levels. There's modern Orthodox or there's modern Orthodox. If they're more modern than Orthodox, more than modern. So if you know the Hebrew, he lived in Israel. So he said, Ani dati lefi dati. Means dati, it's a play on words. Dati means religious. But dati also means my mind. Das means the mind. I am religious according to my mind. In other words, according to the way I understand, I'm not going to follow the rabbis or this one, that one. The feed that tea. As far as Zulosai, and then when someone else has an opinion, Eine Mekabel Klal, he doesn't accept it, L'shmei v'lodem bazeh, doesn't even listen, doesn't even consider it to at least research it, think about it. Bamitas blinati etzdadis, without big prejudice. Was adrabe kishemedaber yachad binyan sichli. So when a person like that ends up speaking with another person and he has that kind of an attitude, not only the speaking doesn't help things out, mispardim yosef. They get into an argument and they get into a fight and they oppose each other even more. At the bottom of the page, he says, "V'zen nasa etzlei tanya." Now this becomes the fact that they got into an argument and sort of a bigger disagreement. That after that, I can't talk to this person. Look what happened last time I spoke. We got into an argument. But the reason why you got into an argument is because you had an attitude in the first place. So this is the summary of this sinas chinam b'evnei avaya, how there could be baseless hate by those who serve Hashem, and what is the advantage of people getting together, both in learning and also in terms of avodah. Okay, to be continued. Just gonna finish the attendance here.